Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for the mayor of Abbotsford to bring the RCMP in. On the insider trading, the threats on Abbotsford residents, and an attempted murder in broad daylight on my life that was covered up by the top of the Abbotsford police and political politicians. There's a video going around and everybody's been asking me to post to Brad Viss, now endorsing Amric Moran. And this is the establishment. There's no use crying to me about it. You need to pick up the phone and call Pierre Poilievre and show Pierre Poilievre of how they're trying to load Amric Moran over other councillors. And have Pierre Poilievre tell him to stay away from Ed Fast and make the MP stay in mission. Brad Viss needs to stop it, and he needs to stop it very fast. And this is uncalled for. And it's not a fair, level playing ground for other councils, but everybody in Abbotsford's got to start shunning Brad Viss. That calls for Bruce Banman, Rianne Gasper, and everybody around. Brad Viss needs to go into mission and behave. Today I'm on Vanderpoel's job site here in Abbotsford on Tracy Road. It sure looks like the Abbotsford residents and myself, the insider Dave Sidhu, had a great tie to the NDP David Eby. First of all, his land was, as the city council, his land and his dad's land was hand-picked to sell to Vitalis and get a significant lift from Vitalis getting corporate welfare. Not only that, it's in a commercial business. It was brought to ag land so they could waive the taxes. Vanderpoel's was given a guarantee in advance through Pam that they could do this here. You can't turn semi-trucks up here on Tracy Road. And secondly, there's well water all around here and they're going to put it on septic. I made that clear from the city insiders. Rather than take this down at the U.S. border, they were doing it here. It was $6-point-something million for all Dave Sidhu helping Ross Siemens load him through the South Asians. And this is what it was about. This money was to pay off Dave Sidhu and Andy Sidhu for using the South Asian newspaper and rigging the municipal election that Dave worked his ass off to load his best buddy, Ross Siemens. They took advantage of the city, and they have been, to lift their job sites and threaten residents and been laughing and giggling. Under the private police, there was no investigation. It was buddies and buddies, and it had the elite politicians of Abbotsford doing insider trading. You know, when the election ran last time, there was a list that was created, and here it is, and it was passed out through Henry's church. And it was who we wanted in the list: Dave Sidhu, Kelly Shahal, Sandy Bloom, and it went down, and they passed it. They said, our boy Ross Siemens weak, but he's still our boy. I wonder if he's still your boy now. Ross Siemens knocked his gas station down, took it to mission, and he poisoned the aquifers out there. This was all being done because they were swore into offices where they could clean and cover for each other. It was an elite ring, a group, a mob, and it was held up and ran by Henry Braun, the train tycoon. He went as far as using so much money and power that he covered and used the Abbotsford police to cover his targeted attempted murder in broad daylight, pulling my Abbotsford police and wrecking them. The police chief and his veteran officers have all went to work for David Eby. I showed you a podcast how the city manager came from Victoria here, Peter Sparanese, for David Eby, and now I showed you Colin Watts. And it sure looks like David Eby had handpicked this and set this up with Dave Sidhu and the money missing out of Barrowtown. What are I doing here? Vitalis is a commercial business. It's in ag processing, that's milk and eggs. And it has to use a chemical called caustics here. That chemical now, hooking up to the sewers, the city sewer, hooking up to the city sewer, it will be monitored by government officials of how much they're using in different chemicals, ammonias and everything else, and they monitor it through wash tanks and clean tanks. Now they're going to do it here, this caustic, they're going to use it here and all these other chemicals in a septic. And first of all, I was told by the Ministry of Health that it was first, they refused it, but somehow a bigger brown envelope came and said, we really need this on Dave Sidhu's property. We got the NDP, David Eby, handing the money in here and what was coming in return. Knowing it was the city councils, knowing the land was being lifted, shoved the raspberries under and everything. And now they want to put this on a septic. The danger of this is what's here. See this? This is all rock. There's no hard clay or nothing. It'll seep down, and you wonder who's going to do the plumbing inspection. Probably one flunky that Dave Sidhu and Ross Siemens know, so it ain't glued proper and compressed and tested under high pressure testing, so there's no leaks or nothing. But the problem is you'll always have a leak, and it'll get down, and we got major well water here. This is why the voices of Abbotsford's neighbors here were all blocked not to speak at the city auditorium and bring it up. And Vitalis, being in that commercial business, will use high levels of chemicals, major chemicals, to separate the enzymes from the milk and eggs and everything else. And this needed to come to an end, but it sure looks, and it is now, that Dave Sidhu is the city insider with David Eby, the NDP. So my question, and in my opinion, is how much did David Eby ask through Ross and Dave Sidhu, can I get in the back? Because I need to run in an election. First of all, Barrowtown money's missing, the $76 million. Then we had the Ag Center, he wants to move for $500 million. And this stuff just keeps coming. But what we don't have is an MLA that can represent Abbotsford. Our BC Conservative MLA, Corky Neufeld, went beside the city councils and beside Ross Siemens, and here's the deal, in my opinion. You don't harm me, Corky, and we'll help you when you need to run again for the MLA position. This is what problems. The law took a back seat to their friendship. And we need to make sure the law comes forward and you take a back seat to the laws. So now we have to look at that this Vitalis job was an inside job. It was done with David Eby, done through Pam and everything. And David Eby knows that any MLA that attacks him now from the BC Conservative point of view, hammering him, he has to go under investigation because Barrowtown's money's missing. And it sure looks like it. You know, don't get it wrong that David Eby's the premier. He really cares for all residents and everybody. This stuff here tells a different picture, and he's putting people's lives in danger. And everybody here has their natural well water here and drinking water. And they rammed this down the residents. So they had the guaranteed from Dave Sidhu, if they purchased his dad's property, they could get the zoning done fast. We don't have to have any permits. We'll be able to move in here. We'll shove the raspberries under and everything. They also got the guaranteed that the city would work hard to lobby and get the money from David Eby, the 30 million, plus 5 million from Community Futures, and putting the general public in harm's way. They won't let the general public see the feasibility study, but it was insider trading. And now you know what Colin Watts was doing here. And now you know that Colin Watts' job is not to police and get gangs. David Eby sent him in here and said, I need Abbotsford, I need it cleaned up, I need you. Now, it doesn't look like Henry's ordering the cops on me no more. It sure looks like David Eby's ordering them. I need you, Colin Watts, to go smash people's cameras, smash people's videos, and run roughshod because it's coming back in my premier's office. And this job should have been taken off the table. But what it doesn't have is it doesn't have an MP or an MLA. Brad Viss is loading Amric Moran, and this is why Brad doesn't stand here and call the NDP out, because he's working with the establishment to get Amric Moran in, and yesterday was a prime example of what Brad was doing. And Corky Neufeld's too busy with Dave Sidhu and Ross Siemens, so he ain't going to call his friend out. He ain't. Let me tell you, as your mayor, you misbehave, my friend or not, I'm going to give you the option to pay it back, apologize, before I call you out and bring the authorities in. Something that Ross Siemens couldn't do because he was being operated from the back with Henry Brown. But this here is insider trading. It needs to all go back, and then that way Dave Sidhu's going to get really mad with his dad and then tell on everybody else's because he didn't get to keep his. He's going to tell on Ron Funk. He's going to tell where the 71 million or 76 million out of Barrowtown. He's going to tell what Darren Brown said on the Abbotsford police station. And we did this. So I'm going to ask Caroline Finley, when are you going to start whipping your MLAs, Corky Neufeld and Armin Bangdu, into shape and say, this is worth a lot of leverage. It's an insider with the NDP. He's a city council, preferential treatment, the endangerments to the environment, to people's drinking water and everything. And this could have been down by the U.S. border on the industrial. and all the high level of concentrated chemicals that Vitalis has got to use. And the city is going to do its own inspection for Vitalis on plumbing, on the environmental and creek enforcement. Can you believe this garbage? This is the same city that allowed people to get deadly sick on the Mackenzie Bog. And I bet you Rob Isaac's going to say, you know, just snap a few pictures, send me my brand envelope, and we're going to sign off. I'm live, Abbotsford, British Columbia, David Eby.